Hi everyone, I'm Cory Anotado, the executive producer of Tell Us About Yourself, conversations with game show contestants. Our first season has come to a close, and our host Christian Carrion is taking a well-deserved break. He'll be back in the new year with new episodes of the podcast. Meanwhile, I'll be replaying some of our favorite episodes, giving you a chance to listen again to some of the greatest stories we have from the stars of your favorite game shows, the contestants. We couldn't do this without your help, so we appreciate you listening and supporting the podcast. We also could not have done this without the support of the National Archives of Game Show History at the Strong National Museum of Play. The National Archives of Game Show History at the Strong preserves the history of game shows, from the earliest panel shows and quiz scandals, to the games and puzzles of the 1970s, to the Big Money Network series, and the classic games now in prime time. You can learn more about the archives or the museum itself at their website, museumofplay.org. We would also appreciate if you visited our Patreon page. You can support the podcast for as little as $1 per month. You can check that out and more at patreon.com/packdo. Now, without further ado, here's an encore episode of Tell Us About Yourself, conversations with game show contestants.
Tell us about yourself, would you?
Tell us something about you.
For any new viewers, why don't you tell us again about yourself?
We've met before, but let's meet again. Tell us about
What
yourself.
else can you tell us about yourself?
Perhaps you'd fill us in again and tell us about yourself.
I'm Christian Carrion. Tell me what these game shows have in common. The Gong Show, Wheel of Fortune, Press Your Luck, Trivia Trap, The $1 Million Chance of a Lifetime, Trivial Pursuit, Free For All, Sports on Tap, Majority Rules, Match Game, Winning Lines, The Weakest Link, Whammy, Pyramid, Balderdash, Brain Teasers, Merv Griffin's Crosswords, 25 Words or Less, The Price is Right. My guest tonight has been a contestant on every single one of those shows. As a matter of fact, he's made more appearances as a game show contestant than any other person in North American television history. He's written a book called Winning Secrets from the Game Show Guru, in which he shares his insight regarding what contestant coordinators look for. But he's here tonight to share stories and experiences from a 40-year career as a game player. Scott, welcome to the show. Tell us about yourself.
Hi, my name is Scott Hostetler. I'm originally from Wichita, Kansas. Moved out to California at the age of 2, and I've been pressing my luck here ever since. Married my high school sweetheart, and I have a boy and a girl, and now they have given me 3 grandsons. I've been on 20 game shows, and I've won 15 times. 19 shows in the United States and 1 in England, and I believe that's the North American record for most appearances on different game shows.
Now, I got to tell you, just from personal observation, Scott, the beginning of that speech sounds like it has been refined over the years, and it hits all of the points that a contestant coordinator would want to hear perfectly. How long did it take you to get to the point where you can tell somebody about yourself, tell the casting director or contestant coordinator about yourself in that just scientifically perfect way?
Well, like you said, it did take some time. I got on my first show kind of by accident, and then I thought, well, this is a lot of fun and profitable. So I tried out for other shows. This is in the late 70s, early 80s, High Rollers and Joker's Wild and all these, and I didn't get any success until I hit Press Your Luck in 1983, and I kind of figured out what they wanted, and and how to, like you say, refine it to where I'm hitting all the high points and showing the contestant coordinators that I can speak without, tripping over myself.
Sure. Yeah, I think a lot of game show viewers don't realize the science that goes into not only being the perfect contestant, but also finding the perfect contestant. And there are, and I'm sure you can speak to this, having been on as many shows as you have, there are different kinds of personalities that might be good for one, but not good for another. A press your luck personality, for example, might not be so good on a show like Pyramid or a show like Catch 21 or The Price is Right. They're different, they're different in that way.
Right, right. Well, you have to have the basic knowledge that they're looking for. But yes, Pyramid, they're looking for, somebody who can play a game. In fact, when I was on Pyramid with Donny Osmond, the contestant coordinator came to me and said, Scott, tone it down a little bit because the stars are the stars of the show, not you. Oh, okay.
Sure.
And I was with Kennedy at the time, and Gilbert Gottfried was the other guest, and both of them were terrific and very, very funny. But I've written a book. People ask me, how do you get on game shows? I get that all the time. Everybody loves game shows. There's everybody's got a story. You mention game shows, either they've been on one or they know somebody who's been on one, and they would ask me, how do you get on game shows? Well, I wrote a book, How to Get on Game Shows and Win. And I just wrote what I do, what I figured out that the contestant coordinators, are looking for, and you try to be what they're looking for. They're casting a TV show, and they want different types of people. They want people you can root for. They want people you can root against. What they want is for the home audience to care about the show and about having fun. And so I try to be fun, and I love playing games.
Yeah, I'd like to talk about that because one of the points that I hit with the people that I talked to for this project is the role that game shows played in their life growing up before they even thought about becoming a game show contestant. And my experience asking this question has resulted in a lot of different answers. Some people just get into it as a way to make money on the side. Some people, like me, I mean, I grew up loving game shows and everything about them. And so it was just an opportunity to get into the TV and be that person. Where did game shows fall for you when you were younger, before you were a career contestant?
I enjoyed game shows, but I wasn't crazy about them, like you say, a fanatic. But I was sitting home and during college, and my aunt calls me and she says, Scott, I've got an audition for Wheel of Fortune. This is 1978. And will you drive me up to LA? Because she was a bit older and she didn't want to drive, and I didn't have any classes or anything. So I said, sure, I'll drive you up there. So I drove her up to Merv Griffin Studios, and the girl comes down. She says, okay, who's here for Wheel of Fortune? My aunt says, my nephew brought me up here. Can he audition too? And she says, yes, we've got room. Okay. Now, you know how hard it is to get an audition nowadays?
Oh, yeah.
I came in off the street.
It's like the,
Well,
like the lottery these days.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, you're right. So I went up there and we both took the test, and they picked me and not her. But
oh, that's a tense car ride home, I can imagine.
no. She was very excited, very
Wonderful.
excited, and that's when you bought things, the showcases and stuff. And so I bought her a nice pewter and brass serving tray worth $225.
Right. Oh,
So
that's
anyway.
right. That's the early part of Wheel of Fortune, where before a lot of people don't realize the history that this show has. For years, you took your money and then bought your prizes. You never walked away with cash on Wheel of Fortune.
No, never. Even if anything was left, you got it on account or gift certificate. And so I was there with Chuck Woolery and Susan Stafford. And a good show. And I end up winning $5,000 worth of stuff. So I got lots of furniture, all this kind of stuff. And the very next Saturday, I got married. So
Wow.
it was filled the house with new furniture. So that's good.
How wonderful. What a blessing that is.
Oh, yes.
Incredible. So this is not your first game show, though, is it? Am I correct in saying that?
That is true. So I got into that by accident, but in my freshman year of college, me and two other gentlemen, um, we developed a really silly act, and we went and auditioned for the Gong Show, the original Gong Show with Chuck Barris. Now, the three of us, I was short, another guy's middle, another guy's tall, and we sang in three-part harmony. And so we wore Hawaiian shirts with lays and called it ourselves the Three Layers. And we wanted to get on just for a lark because you didn't win much on the Gong Show back in those days, just to get on TV. So we go into the studio, and there's Chuck Barris standing against a piano, leaning against piano, looking down, just strumming an electric guitar that's not plugged in. And he seems to be talking to the guy at the piano. So we wait till we get his attention. And the contestant coordinator says, go ahead. So we start into our act, and then we tell some bad jokes. My dog doesn't eat meat. Why not? Because I don't give him any. You hear the joke about the armpit? Forget it. It stinks. And then we finish with an Irish, bad. Finish with an Irish drinking song. So Chuck Barris finally looks up at us and see these three goofballs standing there with lays and Hawaiian shirt. Oh, layers. Yeah, I get it. Get rid of the armpit joke. It's not funny. Now get the hell out of here. Okay. So are we on? I don't know. So anyway, yeah, they gave us a call, and we got on, and we got gonged in the middle of the jokes by Patty Andrews, the Andrews sisters. She said that those jokes were old when she was a girl. So anyway,
what an honor.
Yes. A lot of fun, and you're sitting in this studio, and they got a week's worth of Gong Show contestants there. You've got acrobats and jugglers and ventriloquists and goofy looking guys in Hawaiian shirts, and it was just it was a little bit of TV history there.
That's amazing. I would love to hear what you remember, Scott, about the atmosphere in that studio, because a lot of people who remember the Gong Show or maybe see clips of it on YouTube these days don't realize what a phenomenon that show was. It was insanely popular. And I wonder what you remember, if there was a certain higher level of energy than you might expect from a game show because it was so popular.
Right. Yes. It was like a circus. Like I say, trapeze artists and people jumping around, balancing balls, and it was like a carnival, just high energy. And then they'd call the acts out of that room and get you ready to go on, one at a time. And you'd get gonged or you wouldn't get gonged. And then they had the unknown comic and Gene, the dancing machine, and Chuck Barris would do some jokes. And it was high energy. It was a lot of fun. And it was just crazy. It was as crazy as it looked on TV.
Oh, that's magical. That's incredible. I love that so much. Mm-hmm. Let's talk for a second again about Wheel of Fortune, Scott. And I'd like to hear your experience with Chuck Woolery, who was a relatively new game show host when you were on in the late 70s. I mean, the show at that point had been on for maybe 2 or 3 years. He wasn't new to TV, but he was definitely new to the idea of being a game show host. What was it like sharing the stage with Chuck Woolery?
Well, first off, this was 1978, and I wore a light blue leisure suit. And so did Chuck Woolery. We matched. So,
as was required by law in the 70s.
Yes. With the nice, flip hair and everything. And he was very friendly, very charismatic while the cameras were rolling. When the cameras went off, he's a good looking guy, and he was a singer, country singer, and he had his career going pretty good there. And he was not as friendly as, say, Bob Eubanks or Wink Martindale or Donny Osmond, but it was fun. It was a good show. He ran it nicely. And another thing that he did that Pat Sajak does not do is at the end of the show, when he spins to see what we're going to play for, he always tried to get the biggest number possible, to where Pat just spins it.
Right. Oh, that final spin, right, where all the letters are worth a certain amount. Yeah, I've seen episodes where he kind of licks his finger, tests the wind, and points to the $2,000 wedge. Like, there it is, and he aims for it. I thought that was a really cool touch.
Yes, he did. He always tried to go for it, show a little bit of skill. And I tried on Wheel of Fortune and the Price is Right when you spin the wheels to kind of gauge my spin to see how hard it is and where it went, so to see if you could figure it out. And I couldn't, because I think I hit bankrupt about 12 times, but I did end up winning the show. And so, but yes, he did have the magic touch on the wheel.
Yeah, he was a big strong guy back then too, if I remember correctly.
Oh yeah, he's a big dude. His leisure suit was a lot bigger than mine.
Right. So we're talking about the 1970s, and I'm going to jump around because there's so much to talk about with you, Scott. So I'm going to jump between topics, and we're going to go forward in time and back in time. But at this point, you are a contestant in what I and a lot of other fans consider to be the golden era of game shows. To me, the mid 70s, when they were experimenting, they were bringing old shows back in almost three dimensions. You had the new Match Game, you had the new You Don't Say, you had things like the Money Maze, just these massive spectacles of shows that they were just experimenting. They were just throwing stuff against the wall to see what stuck. And you talk about knowing what contestant coordinators look for. In your estimation, because you've been a contestant through so many eras of game shows, has that changed significantly from the times of you being on Wheel of Fortune to even later when you were on shows like The Weakest Link or Balderdash? Has that core criteria changed in any way?
Not on those shows. Shows like Balderdash and Weakest Link. Well, they're not looking for the crazy stuff that they are, the high energy stuff from Pressure Luck. But when you did move to shows that were more mercenary, what I mean is, there was one audition where I was filling out the form, and they want to know all these awful things about you and your family and all this stuff, because they wanted to put you on the stage and see if they could convince. It was a Fox one. See if they could convince your spouse or something that you did this or didn't do it or something. I don't know. They got some nasty shows that I walked out. And I took my application when I finally said, you know what, I'm not going to do this one. But the game shows today, Pressure Luck, for example, with Elizabeth Banks, they are looking for high energy, just like The Price is Right. And no, I think this is, and like I said, they are casting a television show, so they want you to support your end of it.
Yeah, and I can imagine that there is a certain subcategory or certain crop of shows that you, as a traditional game show enthusiast, might not be interested in. So things like, the reality shows and, the Moment of Truth, which I think might be the one that you were describing. There's a certain kind of game show that was popular for a long time that thankfully I think is sort of on the decline right now, where the goal is to, humiliate contestants and make them feel bad and make them look silly and make fun of them. Which The Weakest Link was that, but it was also a very strong quiz game at its core, which I imagine appealed to you.
Right. I am basically a trivia guy. I love it. And in my book, when I talk about how to get on a game show, I tell you only go for games that you're good at, because the point, not only the object is to get on the game, but it's also to win. Now, if you're not good at puzzles, don't go on Wheel of Fortune. But like you said, I wouldn't go on Survivor, never interested in it.
So I would love to hear how your love of trivia sprouted when you were younger. Had you always been a fan of trivia? What got you into that scene?
I think, if I hadn't thought of it before, but comedy. I love comedy, which is quick-witted, and little facts always intrigued me, knowing things about things. And so I would read trivia books. I would pick up the encyclopedia and just say, what's that about? Oh, gee whiz, I didn't know that. And so I've always been, it's a thirst I've got a book called The Little Book of Answers, and it's just a small book that someone gave me. And my 5-year-old grandson saw it a couple of months ago and said, "Well, Papa, now I can see why you're so smart. You've got this little book of answers."
How cute.
I've got all the answers. Yes. So I've always enjoyed trivia. I've always been good at it. And some things I know a little bit about a lot of subjects, and I know a lot about a few subjects. And if I've taken the Jeopardy test twice and I have not passed it. The most I ever got was 38 out of 50. And it's straight answer on Jeopardy, the hard questions. And even if I got on, I would need to get a little bit lucky to get my categories, to get baseball nicknames and 1960 movie trivia, stuff like that.
Sure. And I'm looking at right now, speaking of strategy and buzzers and things, I'm looking at the list of shows you've been on, Scott. And again, it's formidable. But one of the things I'm noticing about these shows, and maybe a commonality, is that not a lot of them involve reflexes, involve buzzers, buzzing in for the right answer. How strong are you when it comes to the physical aspect of remembering the answer to a question? Because it's one thing to know the answer, but to get in first with that button, how strong are you in that regard?
Well, I am strong, but there are stronger. Winning lines, for example. Well, winning lines, I was at a handicap because I was taking some pain meds, so that really doesn't count. But a show, Sports on Tap, it was a cable show, and it was set in a bar. That's 1994, I think. And
with Tom
like
Green,
I say,
if I remember correctly.
Yes. That's right. And it was set in a bar. And I know a lot about sports, but there's guys who are nuts about sports. And I knew the answers, but I couldn't get in. So that's something. Now, I've talked about one strategy on how to beat the buzzer is sometimes when you hear the question, if you know the answer or not. Well, after you hit the buzzer, you've got 2 or 3 seconds before you have to give the answer. Scott buzzed in. What's the proper answer? So again, a question comes up. I think I know that, and I hit the buzzer, and now I've got 2 or 3 seconds to come up with the answer. I don't come up with the answer. Gray elephant. Oh, yes, because by the time you say that to yourself, someone else has buzzed in and we're on to the next question. So, and then that runs the risk of you not being able to pull it up and standing there with egg on your face.
Let me get your opinion on a buzzer strategy, Scott. I watched a video. It was a news story from Australia. This must have been within the last decade. And it was about a contestant who was on Sale of the Century. And on Sale of the Century, there's the final round. It's 60 seconds. The host asks questions. The 3 players buzz in as quickly as they can. They get money for a right answer, lose money for a wrong answer. The story was about the strategy that this contestant employed. She would hear the question, and she would identify from the first 3 or 4 words whether it was something that she was going to know. If it wasn't something that she was going to know, she would hit her button and say pass. And then the host would give the right answer, or he would put it aside and they go to the next question. And she would do that over and over again for the questions that she didn't think she would know. The ones that she did know, she buzzed in and answered them correctly. But she almost scrambled the circuits of the other players, and because they're listening to every question. What is the possibility that a strategy like that would ever work long term? One off, I could understand, but it seems like that would take a lot of focus with everything going on, the lights and the host and the music and the questions, to keep that strategy handy, consistently for that 60 seconds.
Well, it's so she would not get penalized if she passed.
No, what was it? I think it was something like that. Because I know typically Sale of the Century, you lose money for a wrong answer, but somehow she was hitting her button and saying pass. Maybe the show works differently in the more current version, but it was, she was hitting her button saying pass and really just kind of skipping to the questions that she would know. But it takes a lot of
Right. Well,
it takes a lot of focus, doesn't it, with all that going on around you?
You are focused, though. You're a six-time game show guy, and one advantage I have is that I've been on shows before, and I love playing games to where I'm going against people who perhaps they're excited to be on the show, and I would say to them as psychological warfare. So you have people watching? Oh yeah, my boyfriend's watching. My dad from back in the. Oh really? That's great. And now they're thinking about them, and I'm thinking about the show because I'm a stinker. But
that's great. And I was going to ask you as well, how strong do you think your advantage is when you've been on almost 24 shows and you're playing against somebody who's maybe never even been on TV before?
Well, it is definitely an advantage. Like you said, the cameras, the audience is there, people asking questions, and there's some excitement there. I can focus and play the game. Not to say that I've never been nervous, but it is an advantage, and that's why returning champions, Ken Jennings on Jeopardy, he got the buzzer down. Boom, boom, boom. As far as that woman in Australia, that's a great strategy if she can keep it up. I look for strategies. For example, when I was on Whammy in 1983, Pressure Luck, my strategy was, they had the slide projectors in the back, and they would shoot the prize or the money or the whammy, and they'd go one after another, and you could time what was coming up. Well, what I would do is watch to when there were a lot of whammies and then hit it when the next board was coming up. And usually there were fewer whammies. So that was my strategy, and it worked great for one show and not so great for the next show. But yeah, control of the buzzer in Catch 21, you have to have control. And luckily, I was better at trivia than some of the other contestants. But since I am a bit older, I was going against two younger women, and they knew the latest pop culture. I was great on history and politics and sports, but they knew the pop culture of today. So that's where they had me at a little bit of a disadvantage.
Let's talk about Press Your Luck for a second, because you mentioned something that I always wondered why more contestants didn't pick up on. So Press Your Luck is the show with the whammies and big bucks, and you're in front of that board and the light is spinning and you hit your button and you win whatever you land on when you hit your button. I always wondered why more contestants didn't just wait until they didn't see a lot of bright yellow on the board, meaning there were less whammies there. And I always wondered if it had something to do with maybe a point of view that the contestant has that the viewer doesn't. Because when you're watching the show, everything is there for you in one frame: the contestant, every square, the light. What kind of frame of reference do you have when you're playing that game in person?
Well, that's a great question, and I'll tell you the differences. In Press Your Luck, you can see the whole board in your view. And you can, like you said, you can see yellow, and then it goes away, and then the next comes up, and then the next comes up. In the new Whammy in 2002, Whammy, the new Press Your Luck, that board was too big. You couldn't get all that board in your view. So I was kind of shooting blind, and I had to be lucky. I'm not sure what other people's strategies were in Press Your Luck, but you gotta have the spins, but you can have too many spins, because the whammy, they tell you the whammy will come up one in every 7 spins. Approximately. And so the game I was in, the one I won, the first round, we had 20 spins and no whammies. And then we got into the second round, and the whammies started showing up. So it's people have different strategies, and it's luck. And luck is a big factor in game shows. I'm the luckiest guy you know. And I say that because of several things. For example, when I was on The Price is Right, I got up to the final showcase, and the prize came out, and it was a telescope, and it was a trip to Tonga, and it was a boat. And since I had won the most money, I could pass. Well, I didn't want a boat, so I passed it. Now you've been on The Price is Right. It is a carnival there.
Yes.
It is crazy, loud. Everybody's having a good time. Some people come just for the fun of it. They don't even care if they get on the show or not. Well, and it's hard to hear things. Well, this nice lady got flustered and she misspoke. She said $41,000. Well, we know it's the mid-20s, that this wasn't a special show. So she misspoke, so I win. All I got to do is not go over. So I was interviewed on the radio once, and they said, well, how come you didn't say $1? Well, first off, I don't like that. But second off, she made a mistake. There's no need to embarrass her. And so my mind was a Ford Escape and going to the Olympics in Scotland in 2012 to watch the women's soccer team. And so I figure, blah, 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 it's 30,000, 32,000. I'm going to say 28,000. Oh, wait a minute. So when it came to me, I said 26,000 and change, and it was 32,000, and I win. But there is sportsmanship, and there is, I could have made a mistake too. It's loud and you can't hear everything. So I forgot your original question.
I did too, but you're a class act, Scott. That's great. That's great to hear. I don't know what the hell of the question. That's a wonderful answer. Yeah, The Price is Right is a show that, I mean, listen, you watch the show and people ask for help from the audience, but how much help is it really to just have 300 people screaming in your face?
Right. If you watch my show, I get, and you got to study the show. I say actors rehearse, athletes practice. You've got to know the show. You have one chance. So I did some research, and this is in 2012. I realized that domestic vacations on The Price is Right run $7,000 to $10,000. Foreign trips over water, which includes Hawaii, run about $8,000 to $12,000. So I get up there, and the game I'm playing is flip flop for a trip to Maui, a week in Maui. And flip flop is a game where there's two sets of numbers. There was a 4-8 and a 2-7. Now you can flip it to make it 8-4, or flop it to make it 7-2, or flip and flop. Well, what do we know from my study? We know it's not 4,800. So I flip it to 8,400. Now, because of my study, I've got a 50-50 chance of winning, because we know the first one's right. So I just left it where it was, and I was right.
You know the show.
You got to know the show.
Yeah,
and that again. That's where I was lucky. Oh, you asked about, and then so I went over and I touched the 48, and I look at the audience like, what should I do? What should I do? I don't care what you guys say. I know what I'm going to do.
Sure,
I'm on. Yes, but I say, hey, what do you guys think? Everybody, it's fun. I love it. I just love it.
And is that the main reason why you get on these shows? Do you just love playing games?
Yes, I do. I love playing games. I love competing. I was at a friend's birthday party last night, and we ended up playing games, and I ended up winning. But
and how common is that? How common is it that you win at game night?
It depends on who we're playing with.
Fair. Yeah, that's fair.
A friend of mine, Kelly Sims, she has been on 10 game shows. And in fact, she was my partner on 25 Words or Less. If we're playing with her, then there's some good competition. And my wife, who's won a couple of game shows herself, she is she's not competitive. She just wins occasionally. Okay. If that makes any sense.
That makes perfect sense. I understand. As somebody with a wife who is very competitive when it comes to games. I understand that point of view 100%. It was a time when I was in college that I stopped getting invited to game night because I was just winning game after game. It was getting embarrassing. For a while, I had no game friends.
Well, last night, I had to stop answering questions.
Right.
It was I just sat there and quit and smiled and said, I don't know. What do you think? So anyway, it is all fun, and I really enjoy games, but it does have to, it has to be fun for everybody to be competitive. Sure. And that's why sometimes there's some of my friends that, we have to get in there and, I have to really excel in order to beat them.
You've been on a lot of classic game shows. By comparison, or on the other side of that, you've also been on a lot of relatively obscure shows. I wonder if you have a favorite short-lived show that maybe a casual game show fan might not know about.
Well, there's the Majority Rules. That's Steven Spielberg. Gosh, when was that? 96. And that was, you had the audience, and I think there was 50 or 60 people there. And Mark Summers was the host. And he would give a topic, and then he'd pick somebody, and they would stand up and kind of campaign. I think the answer is this because of blah, blah, blah. And then he'd pick somebody else. My question, it says, what is the best sitcom of all time? Now, this was 96, so Seinfeld was just, not it was in its infancy, and MASH was there, but kind of old hat. So he picked me, and I said, I think the best sitcom has to be from that bar where everybody knows your name. Cheers had the classic characters from Fat Norm to Know-It-All Cliff, and Rhea Perlman sticking everybody with barbs, and it was just friendly and exciting. And the coach, well, anyway, then he picked a woman behind me, and she said, well, I think the number one sitcom of all time is the Dick Van Dyke Show, because he's very funny, and Mary Tyler Moore would go, oh, Rob, and and then she was basically done. So the premise of the show is the audience then votes on which one they like better, the show or the argument, whatever. Anyway, I won and went on to the final round. But that's one that many people, in fact, I've never seen it. I think it was only aired in the Phoenix area. And if anybody listening has any copies of Majority Rules, I would love to have one.
I guarantee you there are dozens of people right now flipping through their VHSs to see if they have it. There are people who collect thousands of episodes of these shows. I would not be surprised if somebody had it.
That's good. Scott Hostetler, Majority Rules. Also, there was a game called Free for All. It was a quiz show, and I forget who the host was, but it was in the mid-90s, and you brought your own team. So me and my twins of friends of mine, between the three of us, there's nothing we don't know trivia-wise. So we went and we got on the show, and we're playing against this other team, and we were just destroying them. It was in the fast money round at the end. They said, name a fruit whose seeds, bam, we hit. We say strawberries. Seeds are on the outside. Yes. He goes, what is the only mammal that, bam, bats? I mean, we just blow and we just blow them away. Well, then they said, excuse me. So we win the game. Hooray, hurrah. And then they said, we had a technical problem. We have to shoot the whole last fast money round again. So can you guys get the same answers as you got last time? Okay. So we start, and they stole a couple of our answers, but whatever, we win. And then, okay, hooray, hurrah, we win. Then they said, we had another technical problem. We had to do it 4 times, and those guys had to get smoked 4 times by us till they finally got it right.
That's incredible.
And then I won a trip to San Diego. I think that was a big deal.
That was with Mark L. Wahlberg. I met Mark a
That's
few
right.
months
That
ago.
is right.
Yeah, I met him a few months ago at Wheel of Fortune Live in Maryland. He was a class act, and we talked about Free for All for a little while. If I remember correctly, Free for All and another show on USA called Quicksilver shared the same studio. And to do one or the other show, they would just turn the cameras around to either the left side of the stage or the right side of the stage. They just did them all in the same room.
Mm-hmm. You got to make do.
That's right. Scott, I'd love to know how you fare on shows with celebrities. I am, as much as I would like to think it doesn't phase me and I'm really cool, I can be intimidated by celebrities. And I was intimidated when I was on Match Game. I'm intimidated when I meet celebrities. Not in a horrible way. I'm starstruck, because it'll never get old meeting people that you've seen on TV, meeting famous people. Do you do well on celebrity-based shows like Pyramid or Match Game?
I have. Well, I've been on them and I've won them. The celebrities, well, except for 25 words or less. Thank you very much. Celebrities like playing games and they try their best, but sometimes they're not as good as they could be. And they make mistakes. Now, I was on Pyramid with Donny Osmond and I was with Kennedy. And we're in the final round here, and you have to get 5 answers or 6 answers in 60 seconds. Well, we go through, she's giving and I'm receiving. We get 5 answers in 28 seconds. We've got 32 seconds to get one more answer, and I win $10,000, and then I can win 25 and go to the tournament for 100. Hooray, it's going to be great. And so she says, a humble man, and then lights go off and boom, buzzers and everything. Well, the word was humble things. So she said the answer by accident and she felt bad about it. But so anyway, I lost my chance to go into the Tournament of Champions and like that. But when I was on Match Game and it got to the very end, I decided to go with Vicki Lawrence because, she's the pro.
Sure.
Contestant.
Right.
So I look at them as people, and they are just people. And like I say, they're trying their best. Gilbert Gottfried, when the camera's not running, is quiet, nice guy. So
sure,
he's not the the rash guy you see, where the camera's going. And Donny Osmond was a sweetheart. But yeah, I've had success with celebrities.
So when something like that happens, when a celebrity messes up their end of the game and it costs you a chance at the really big money, you're not as angry as some of the viewers who are watching the show and they go, oh, look at that, they blew it.
Well, I've got this philosophy about game shows. I've been on game shows, I've won and I've lost. When you go on a game show, first off, you go in with nothing. You go on a game show, my philosophy is you're going to play the game as good as you can, and hopefully you're going to come out with something. So I went in there. I ended up winning $2,500, $3,000 for the whole show, but for the Pyramid show, and a trip to Jamaica. So that was good, which Kennedy helped me win. So
wonderful.
Yes, you're upset. The home crowd is upset, and upset's the wrong word. I disappointed. She was disappointed, because she wants to play well, and so yeah. My philosophy is you play the best you can, and the chips fall where they may, and hopefully you come out on top.
Through the years that you've been appearing as a contestant on game shows, the media has changed so significantly. I can imagine that you probably, if it wasn't one VHS tape, you had a shelf of appearances of yours that you kept, from the 70s into the 80s and heading into the early 90s. Am I correct? Am I correct in that? How did you archive your appearances before the internet?
Oh yeah. Oh yes. VHS tapes and then later DVDs. And the fun thing is I was a TV editor, so I had editing facilities at my fingertips, but I still kept in the commercials because the commercials from Wheel of Fortune in 1978 are the funny thing. Show us your underalls. And then the girls turn around and put their butts in the camera. It's just a funny
Right.
things
Just
like
a different
that.
time. Yeah. Sure.
Yes.
Well, you know what I find interesting about this aspect of being a contestant is that as the internet grows and YouTube grows and these episodes get traded here and there and get posted and get watched by whole new generations of people, you become almost famous in a different way. I don't know if you're aware of your fame in the game show circle. I don't know how aware you are of that. I don't know if you get messages from fans talking about the shows that they've seen you on or that kind of thing. And there's a certain line that you exclaim in an episode of Press Your Luck that if you were if you Google your name, one of the top suggested searches is Scott Hostetler, Hong Kong.
Yes, Hong Kong, all right. Yes.
Right. And
because they use that in the opening montage for the next couple of years.
Scott says, let's go. A lot of money at stake. Stop! Stop at Hong Kong! Right! A trip to Hong Kong, Scott. Value of $3,000.
Yeah, before the internet, were you known for that line? Were people saying that to you or asking you to say it the way that you do these days? Really? Okay.
Yes, they do. I still have a guy, he's a distance runner in Chicago, who will write on Facebook, he'll say, happy birthday, Scott, Hong Kong, all right.
So when you say things like that, and I can imagine on Press Your Luck, it's sort of spur of the moment because you're caught up in the excitement of that massively exciting game. When you scream things like that, are you aware that you are giving them a clip that they will use in the openings for years going forward? Are you cognizant of the fact that you're making a show, or was that just a product of the excitement of that game?
Well, here's a little tidbit. That was heartfelt and spur of the moment. That Hong Kong, all right, very exciting. When I won the game, at the very end of that game, Tony, the lady next to me, hits a whammy. I win the game. I stand up and throw my arms. I want to give them this. Oh, they're gonna, yeah. They never used that. They didn't like it. I manufactured that for them, but they like the more natural Hong Kong, all right.
Sure.
So it seems like when you try to do something, they don't care for it, or maybe they would have used it if the Hong Kong wasn't so good. I don't know.
Now, you had several appearances on game shows in the early 2000s, and this is in the wake of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. And there are seemingly dozens of opportunities to win $1 million on just about every network there is. I think even Univision had $1 million game show at one point. You were on a show called Winning Lines, hosted by Dick Clark.
Right.
I would love to know your experience on that show. That was a show that did not last very long in America, but when I was younger, I was maybe 12 years old when it aired. I was fascinated with it. I thought it was such a cool show.
Right. They started off with 49 people. And they asked questions where it was a fast finger, and the people, and then the top 6 went down, and the other 43 went home. Well, I had injured my back, and I couldn't sit for a long time, and I was taking Vicodin, but I still went on the show. In fact, between takes, they were having technical difficulties, and so I was on all fours, my hands and knees, just trying to take some pressure off my back. And Dick Clark walked by and he kind of looked at me, and quizzically I said, I can't sit for too long at a time. And then he just said, yeah, these delays are really a nuisance. And so that's my Dick Clark story.
How nice of him to relate to you.
Yes. Yes. See, he wasn't the producer of that. He was just the MC. So he, his shows, he likes them to run better than that. He was a little bit frustrated with how they were running. But yes, that show, I was on $1 Million Chance of a Lifetime, but I think that was 1986?
Correct. And that was with your wife, wasn't it? That was a husband and wife show.
Right. Right, a husband and wife show, and it was Jim Lang was the host, and that was Wheel of Fortune. There's a big typewriter there. They put puzzles up, and you picked letters and then tried to guess. And so, but the thing there was, if you won the show, you beat the other couple, you played the fast money round. If you won that, the first day you win $5,000. Now you can keep that 5,000 and go home, or you can give it back and come back the next day. And then you win $10,000. And then if you give that back, you come back the next day. And if you sweep it again, you win $1,000,000, or so they say. What you won, no,
Right.
what you won was two Mazdas, 20 Delta airline tickets, a bunch of furniture, and then a annuity that in 7 years started paying you money for that added up to $1,000,000. I didn't have to worry about it because we lost the second day. So
Got it. And when you won the I've seen the show, but I forget the details of the win conditions. If you win the 5 or 10,000 and walk away, that's cash, right?
right. In fact, in the show, see, this is how goofy I am. They hand us $5,000. And so I've got it in my hand, and I turn around, start to walk away, and my wife grabs my arm, brings me back because she knows what we're going to do. So anyway, yes, they give you the cash right there. Well, they'll give you a check later, but they had the guard there and a big stack of money, and it was all for show. It's a fun show, and Jim Lang's very personable, nice guy.
He seemed like he was a very warm personality and somebody that you take comfort in having on stage. That actually brings me to my next question. You know, Scott, there's a lot of talk about what makes a good game show host. And I think that those conversations tend to focus on the qualities that you see as a viewer through the screen. I wonder if you, having had so many experiences on set with so many hosts, could add anything to that list. Is there any off camera quality that you think makes a good game show host?
Well, yes, genuine. Bob Eubanks, terrific guy, and he seems to root for everybody. And Donny Osmond, great guy. Again, and but you look at, let's just say, Alex Trebek. Now that's a more, let's call it an adult show, a more mature show. A game show host's job is to move the game along. Now, if you watch my very first trivia trap, I was being a little bit goofy, and Bob Eubanks gathered us in and pushed us along. You have a little bit of goofy, but we still got this a half-hour show. And that was very professional. When I watch it again, I think, boy, Bob handled that really well. You have to be. I like genuine. Like I said, some people aren't as genuine as other people, but the main thing they have to do is move the game along so that everybody gets to enjoy it at home and on set.
Sure. And I think that that comes across as well. When you have a host that's good off camera, it can't help but have that energy spill over to on camera. And, audiences are very, I think, perceptive of that as well.
Oh, Peter Tamarkin is very funny too. Pressure Luck.
Oh, he was my favorite. Peter Tamarkin, when I was younger, was my favorite game show host. That was Press Your Luck is the show that really got me into game shows. I used to watch it on USA back when I was younger. And that was a real no pun intended, a game changer for me.
Yes. Well, it was a game changer for me. That's when I kind of figured out how this thing works, and so my percentage of getting on game shows rose dramatically after that.
Is that true? Did Press Your Luck represent a sort of paradigm shift for you, where now you were more confident in your abilities to go through the casting process and get on the show and do the whole thing?
Definitely, yes. It seems like I was knowing what they want, a little more of the strategy of what they're doing. I want to get on the show and win, compete, have fun, and win. They need to have a compelling TV show that people will keep watching. So I need to be that person to help them get the show that they want. And that's basically it for all the contestant coordinators. They've got a hard job, but Yeah, you're being cast, and you can't have too many men. Jeopardy's always looking for women, to where Wheel of Fortune's always looking for men, because a majority of the people that get on that are women. Majority of the people that get on Jeopardy are men. And you just want to keep a nice balance so everybody at home can enjoy it. Now, you have to have a test or some kind of qualifier, because if somebody's killing people on Jeopardy, for example, every game this guy's killing people, well, after a while, people get bored and they start feeling bad for the other people. And if you feel bad, you're going to quit watching the show because it makes you uncomfortable. So it's a fine line, casting a game show.
As somebody with such a unique insight into this type of TV, do you get bored, for example, when somebody like James Holzhauer wins 30 games in a row on Jeopardy and just destroys everybody, run away day after day? Are you more or less entertained by something like that? Or are you also the kind of person that might get bored with something like that?
No, I think James Holzhauer was a phenomenon. At first, I didn't like it when he started answering the questions from the bottom up, because those are the hard questions, and I like to work my way and get in the subject. But and then he would risk it all. He had to answer all the questions right, though. So it's not just the fact that he went from the bottom up, that strategy. He still had to have the knowledge. But no, I thought he was very entertaining, and I rooted for him. I think he's good. I was rooting for the all the guys who are dominating, and ladies, as long as the games are still compelling for the most part.
Scott, when I turned 18, I auditioned for every game show I could find. And I was lucky enough between then and now to have made it on a half dozen of them. I would thrive on the interpersonal, because to me, that provided the energy that I needed to give a good audition and to know what I wanted to say and how I wanted to say it and the energy that I wanted to provide. When COVID hit, I had a certain level of difficulty adjusting to virtual meetings and Zoom auditions and things where you can theoretically audition in your underwear. There isn't that process anymore where you're getting dressed and, combing your hair and going to the studio or going to the audition. Is that something that you, with your experience in game shows, had any difficulty with when that sort of became the norm?
Yes, I did. I don't care for it, because you're on the small screen for them, and there, of course, everybody else is. I understand that, but evidently, I don't come across as well over Zoom as I do in real life, because I haven't been able to crack pressure luck. For example, when we did 25 words or less, we're sitting in a little room all by ourselves. In fact, I'm by myself. My partner's in another room, and Meredith Vieira's in a basement in New York. She's not even in LA. So it's all very disjointed. I like the interpersonal. I like seeing people and smiling and rooting for people. When you auditioned before, there'd be a dozen of you, and they'd bring one or two people up to play a mock game, and you, as other candidates, would clap and cheer and help them, and you'd learn more about the game. And I like that, rather than standing here talking. They ask a question, you give some kind of an answer, and it's very sterile. It's hard to get excited without looking stupid or feeling stupid, standing in your living room trying to defeat the whammy.
Right.
So
you have hit it on the head
yeah,
perfectly, because I think that and I don't know if I'll anger anybody listening by saying this, but to me, that is where things like the virtual let's make a deal that they're doing now, that's where those ideas sort of fall flat, because that energy to me comes from being in the room with the people under the lights, with the host and the microphone in your face and the car and the money in front of you. And to me, I have trouble with as much experience as I have on these types of shows. I have trouble scraping together that energy to be an in-studio type of contestant at home. I think it is phenomenally difficult.
Oh, yes, yes. And because you reach a level, you're going up, 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 and then you limit yourself because I'm standing here in my living room. And, I don't want the neighbors to think I'm murdering somebody by jumping up and down. Well, in the audition room with other contestants, you can jump up and down. You can show them who you are and what you want and what you would give them. I think it was Leslie Aquavita, one of the contestant coordinators, says to everybody in the pep talk, is give us everything you got, because we know we can bring you down. We can bring you lower. We don't know if we can build you up. Well, it's hard to give you everything we've got, like I say, when I'm standing in my living room looking at my iPad.
Right, exactly. It's just to me, it's hard to manufacture the excitement that a true game show needs. It has to be an organic product, I think, of the environment.
Yes, that's exactly right. Thank you.
Scott, we're doing this podcast in conjunction with the National Archives of Game Show History, which is an undertaking that Bob Bowden and his partner Howard Blumenthal have put together. They're in the process of gathering all this material. And a big focus of the archive is the memorabilia, the props and the cards and the name tags and the set pieces that make these game shows what they are. In your career as a contestant, have you accrued any level of memorabilia from these shows? Do you keep anything from the shows that you're on?
Well, you know what? I wish I did. I have a bumper sticker from Pressure Luck 1983. But for the most part, I'd like to have my winning when Vicki Lawrence wrote down my match on Match Game in '98. I'd like to have that card. I did get a license plate from The Price is Right, and yes, because I won a car, and but I gave
how
it to
quickly
my
we
grandson.
forget. Oh, how wonderful!
Yes,
how wonderful.
Yeah, so he's got it up on his wall because he's only 15 and he can't drive. But no, I don't have a lot of memorabilia.
It's funny that some people have a mind for collecting things like that, and some people don't. Some people just live in that moment. I think at one point I had a lot of very shiny cardboard from the shows that I was on, but after a while, you start to cherish the experience, I think, more than the physical representation of the experience.
Well, I love the videos I've got that I can sit and watch. Sit with the grandsons and watch. And one thing you have to worry about when you get on a game show, especially a trivia show, sometimes your mind just goes blank and you miss a question. And then people say, how could you miss that question? Well, let's see you get up there and try it. So I never blame anybody for, having a brain smoke there that they can't come up with an answer, because there is pressure and sometimes everything's just not working.
Now, Scott, you were a contestant not only on Press Your Luck, but you were also on the revival that they did in the early 2000s on GSN called Whammy. And I happen to have a personal connection to that show because one of my partners in crime here at the National Archives of Game Show History, Bob Bowden, was instrumental in mounting the revival of Press Your Luck, which I think was a very significant, important show for him. I wonder, in your career as a contestant, have you ever run into my buddy Bob Bowden?
Yes, I did, as a matter of fact.
Tell me about it.
Well, in gee whiz, this would have to be 5, 6, 7 years ago. Some people and we were talking about my game show career, and they wanted to maybe pitch a game show of with me as the host and talking about the history of uh, game shows, and then maybe a documentary on how game shows are made, follow a contestant through. And anyway, we ended up meeting Bob for lunch. And it was when the chase was on, because I remember him looking at me, and I was in my mid 50s or something. And Bob says, well, "You're too old for the chase." Too old? Holy smokes. Well, he's going for a younger demographic. So, I appreciate the honesty. But no, he is a big dog in the game show industry and been influential in a lot of things. And I've got the utmost respect for him.
Yeah, it's really because of my appearance. He put me on the chase in 2013, and I didn't win, but the experience was something that I love talking about to this day. And that was my first introduction to Bob Bowden personally, because I had known his work from TV before I was even born, and I know that, the hand that he had in Game Show Network, which was a huge resource for me growing up. So it's funny to me that the thing that we're doing right now has has that connection to Bob. I just think it's cool the way the world works sometimes.
Well, I think it's typical, that Bob, who's had such a wonderful career, particularly in game shows, is involved in this historic gathering of stuff. Time capsule, if you will.
Well, he has. I think it's like the largest collection of game show props, I think, of anybody. I don't know if that's something that's been officially recognized, but I know that a lot of this archive consists of things that he's had in his home for years. He is the museum of game shows. I've been on half a dozen shows, and there was a time in my life when I was a shameless self-promoter. When I would meet somebody, that was the first thing they knew about me, because I consider that to be my ultimate fun fact. As I got older, right, I started appreciating people just sort of finding out on their own. I don't know that I wanted to hit people over the head so hard with this fact as soon as I meet them. I don't want to, I don't in every circle want to be the game show guy. I'm very proud of it, but I was enjoying, when I would start a new job, I would meet everybody. And then 3 days later, inevitably, somebody would come up to me and say, I searched for you on YouTube last night. And then that begins the whole other chapter of me knowing these people. How much of a self-promoter are you? And is that something that has ebbed and flowed with time?
I have trouble self-promoting, although I try to do it. For example, here's a self-promotion. Since I've retired, I have got a new hobby where I've got a YouTube channel where it's a comedy cocktail show called Scott Tales on YouTube, where I do jokes and I make a cocktail or a mocktail and tell you a little bit about it. They're, 4 or 5 minutes. I do jokes like this. I wasn't a very good student. They asked me what I want to be when I got out of high school. I said no more than 25. But
put him chat.
Yes. So anyway, I'm doing that now, and I've got a couple of hundred subscribers, and it's fun. And like I say, I use my TV experience, but you're right. I meet people. If I went to a wedding last year across the country. My nephew is getting married, and I meet the bride's father. He says, "Oh, you're the game show guy." Yeah, I'm the game show guy. So, and like you said, I'm proud of it. I've been on all these shows. I have a good time. It's a lot of fun, and hopefully I don't embarrass myself or anyone else. So, but also it's good at a function where you're sitting at a table and people don't really know each other. And so I will say, if there's no conversation, everybody's kind of awkward, I'll say, "So has anybody been on a game show?" And everybody knows somebody. Well, I was on a show, and blah blah. My nephew was on a blah blah blah, and then we get everybody loves game shows, so we'd get on a nice topic, and from there we share game shows for a while, and then we talk about other things. So it's a great icebreaker because everybody loves game shows.
That is true. It is a great hobby to have in your back pocket because you're right. It is something that everybody, whether they watch game shows or not, they can relate to I think they can relate to the achievement. They can relate to the fun. It's impossible to tell somebody, at least from my experience, impossible to tell somebody a story of my time in game shows and have them not react positively. It's a great thing to be able to tell people.
Yes, I agree.
Scott, what advice would you give to a person who loves game shows, who wants to be a contestant, but is maybe too shy or too hesitant to let that part of them out that would become a good contestant? What advice would you have for a person like that who loves game shows, but is maybe hesitant to sort of jump in the water?
It's if you're shy, I guess you can create another persona. One time I was auditioning for High Rollers in like 80, 81, something like that. And I was doing a mock game with this older lady, and she was kind of quiet and reserved. And I let her attitude bring mine down to where I wasn't as boisterous as I should have been. So, and neither one of us got picked. So they've got to get a persona, keep trying. For one thing, if I just quit after that High Rollers thing, then I wouldn't have gotten on Pressure Luck, and I wouldn't have gotten on 20 game shows. But you've got to risk it. You've got to risk feeling stupid. Again, in a room full of people, I'm the loudest one, but we're not in a room full of people anymore. So I would persistence, just keep going, study the show. In a show, you do still get to try out in person at the Price is Right, which I'm eligible to go back on. So I think I'll try that again. But you've got to be the best person in the room. If you're in the Midwest or in the South or something, and then the Wheel of Fortune bus comes along and you've got yourself a tryout, then you are trying out with other people next to each other. Be funny, be energetic, joke around, even at your own expense. I like self-depreciating humor, and have fun. They want people who are fun. You got to throw that shackle off and be energetic and not worry about what the people sitting next to you think, and worry about the people on the other side of the table, what they think, because they're the ones putting you on the show and you're the one going to the bank after the show.
Tell Us About Yourself. Conversations with Game Show Contestants is hosted, edited, and produced by me, Christian Carrion, from my studio in beautiful downtown Lancaster City, Pennsylvania. Co-executive producer Cory Anotado. This has been a production of BuzzerBlog, the most popular game show website in the world, in partnership with the National Archives of Game Show History at the Strong Museum of Play in Rochester, New York. For more information, visit museumofplay.org. Thank you so much for listening. I'm Christian Carrion. Good night. Tell Us About Yourself. Conversations with Game Show Contestants is produced in partnership with the Strong National Museum of Play in Rochester, New York, one of the largest history museums in the United States, and one of the leading museums serving families with highly interactive exhibits and programs. Since 1968, the Strong Museum has been dedicated to exploring the ways in which play encourages learning, creativity, and discovery, and how it illuminates cultural history. And their National Archives of Game Show History. Founded by industry veterans Bob Bowden and Howard Blumenthal, the archive is home to thousands of artifacts representing over 80 years of broadcasting, including props, set designs, video interviews with game show professionals, and other iconic elements from the history of television at play. For more information about the National Archives of Game Show History or the Strong National Museum of Play, visit museumofplay.org or call area code 585-263-2700.